Welcome to the Culture Shock Podcast on the Dynasty DNA Podcasting Network, where Big Culture Bob breaks down the 5 things that stood out this week in the NFL, the good, the bad, and the ugly of NFL and Dynasty Fantasy Football topics every week. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And here is your Culture Shock host, TJ Blake.
Welcome back, DNA Strand crew, to the newest episode of the Culture Shock here on the Dynasty DNA Podcasting Network. I'm your host, TJ Blake. You can follow me over on X at FFTJBlakeDNA. And fresh back from sunny Florida, we are joined by the cultured one, Big Culture Bob Helfert. You can follow him over on X at Big E Fat Bob. Bob, happy to have you back. How was the vacation?
Not nearly as relaxing as I would have hoped, because when you take 3 daughters with you, they want to shop and do things. And man, I just want to relax. And then sunny Florida is a misnomer. It seemed like every day around 4 o'clock we had like a torrential downpour. I was like, what the heck? This is ridiculous. We would get text messages like, lightning striking, get out of the pools. We'll let you know when it's safe. And like 4 hours later, or well, not 4 hours, but like 2 hours later, I'm like, you can get back in the pool. I'm like, man, I'm dead to the world now. I want to go to sleep. Like, so yeah, it's different.
I love it, Bob. I know that, we got a big trip coming up here for the Fantasy Expo. We got to see you guys there. If you're going out there to Canton, me, Bob, to share a tie, we'd love to run into you. Love to see you. Stop and say hi. But a good episode here today, Bob, coming fresh back from your trip. We're going to be doing 5 musts when you're building a dynasty roster, right? When you first get started, what's some 5 musts, like 5 big culture rules when you're building a dynasty roster? So a little bit fun, a little bit different. Let's start with the first must on your list, Bob, when you're beginning to build a dynasty roster, right? Because we know startups are coming, a lot of new dynasty players. Let's pick your brain and see what your thoughts are.
Well, I think the first one really goes without saying, but I think I'm just going to skim over this one and then try and hit a topic. But like, number one, really know your rules. Like, obviously, if it's tight end premium, like if it's high, and then So know the rules. So like, obviously PPR, does it favor RBs? Does it favor wide receivers? And then if it favors like one position really over the other, super flex, 2 QBs, all these things, make sure you hammer those positions kind of early if you can. I don't like getting pigeonholed into a corner per se, but like I want to make sure that I get an elite guy at the position that's the most favored, if not 2, maybe 3, especially if we're talking about wide receivers. I tend to draft wide receiver heavy. I don't think that's really obvious. It's kind of obvious with the way I talk, I mean, like you guys hear me bash running backs all the time. So like, I'm never going to, it's a rarity for me to draft a running back in the first round, unless it's like, free league. And I think, I'm just going to see what happens, that type of thing. But for the most part, I'm generally hammering the wide receiver or tight end position. If it's, strong PPR, of course, that makes the most sense, because obviously wide receivers are getting more catches. And then obviously if it's tight end premium, depending on the size of the premium, and I don't necessarily even count 0.5 tight end premium as like even a tight end premium. It's got to be like 0.75, 1.0. Like I just did a startup a little bit ago, and the guy, it was 1.75, like on top of a 1, like for everybody. So I'm like, holy crap. So like, I wanted to make sure I got one of the guys that I consider elite, and I ended up drafting Kraft. So that was, that was right there. And I can't believe I got him in the 4th round. I snaked into it. I kind of was lucky, but the injury really helped out.
Bob, that's what I love about you, right? Keeping it simple, but you are right? Like, these rules, you got to recognize tight end premium, right? Super flex. Like, you do have advantages of those positions, and you got to go shop in there first. And running back, I don't care what kind of dynasty league we're talking. I agree with you for the most part on this. I find the values just a little bit later on. I'm not wasting a top 2-3 round pick on running backs typically. I'm getting receivers. I'm getting tight end, quarterbacks, depending on the league settings, as you said. And, speaking of that, it's kind of similar to one of my first rules, and I've said this a lot. Like, if I'm in a super flex league of any kind, I'm coming out of there with 3 quarterbacks. I don't care the scenario, the circumstance. I have to have 2 very good ones, 1A, 1B, right? Like if I have Josh Allen and Brock Purdy, or if I have Jordan Love and Justin Herbert, I'm happy with that type of build. Then I'll get a third guy later on, right? I mean, like, I just like to have that insurance. And I'm telling you right now, from a leverage standpoint, when it comes to trading, let's say you get a team and you think it's a contender and it busts and it turns into like a bad team. Well, you have 3 quarterbacks, right? That's a great trade piece where you can get draft capital from another team, right? So like, there's a leverage standpoint to that. There is the standpoint of, like, if my team is very good, then I have that insurance if I have the injury, right? Like, I just think it's a necessity, right? Like, I know it's super flex. You can plug anybody in there, but you're only kidding yourself. I mean, unless you get super, super lucky, you could give me 100 rosters, and I bet you out of 100, about 10 to 15 of them probably are the only ones that don't have a third quarterback, right? I mean, it's just like a very low percentage. So I think that goes hand in hand with what you had to say about the rules, knowing about tight end premium, knowing about Superflex. And, I got a couple other good ones coming up. But, I know, Bob, that you recently, speaking of tight end premium and things like that, you and me both in a couple startups together, snagging Brock Bowers and Trey McBride early on in these drafts.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it does. It's nonsense to ignore the position when you're talking about the and I'll legitimately say 5 tight ends. I just think that there's 5 guys that if I leave the draft, I mean, I want to leave the draft with one of those 5 guys because I know I have an advantage over at least, 4 other teams, you know what I mean, or 5 other teams, depending on what my math is losing my brain. 7 teams, I guess, if you got 5 of them. So, and you just mentioned Bowers, McBride, Warren, Loveland, and then Tucker Kraft. And I think Tucker Kraft's probably my 3 at this point this year. But I think any of those 5 guys, I think you have an advantage, at least in Dynasty. Now, obviously, year to year, you're always going to have flexible things because, nobody's super high on the Indianapolis situation this year. But, and I believe in Loveland, but I really want things to kind of shake out. And I don't know how quickly you want me to just lead into my other topic, but you kind of stepped on the toes when you start talking about QBs. What I want to do, and this is kind of like my number 2, is at those thin positions, I want to try and sneaky hoard, right? And I mean it sounds weird and it sounds doofus, but it really is. Like this last draft I did, it was a super flex league. Well, you would think if you're really going to be a hoarding guy, you're going to just bam, bam, bam. Every round you're going to take a quarterback. Well, don't be obnoxious about it, right? Or stupid. Like, still let the value fall to you. I took JSN. I think I was at 8. So I take JSN. Then it comes around to me, I take Justin Jefferson. Well, then it comes around. Well, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I get one of the guys I think can have a top 5 ceiling. So I take Jordan Love. A little bit later or whatever, I trade back in to the draft. And I used my first, and I can kind of talk about part of that later, and even the precious 27 first. But I wanted to make sure that I got a second quarterback or the third quarterback that I was really happy with. So I took Cam Ward and Shuck. Well, those guys are both dice rolls, but I kind of came back around. I took Sam Darnold. I come back around and I make sure I get like Mac Jones. I want to make sure that I'm getting a nice little stable, at least 3, like you said. I will not leave a super flex draft without at least 3 quarterbacks, but I want to have a kind of a group that, hey, if Mac Jones gets a job next year, like we fully expect, then I got Sam Darnold or Cam Ward or Shuck as a trade piece, because I believe that I can plug Mac Jones into, depending on where he goes, of course. If he ends up in the Jets, then he really needs to talk to his agent. But whatever the case may be. But if you get it, you can make things work like that. Like adding those back end guys is one of the things I really like to do in Superflex. People like Jacoby Brissett, how well did he perform for you at the end of last year? If you could have grabbed him at the back end of your draft, you're just singing with the choir or whatever. So go on.
No, I mean, I'm with you on that, Bob. Like the Mac Jones stuff, you and I have been talking about that a lot, right? I mean, it's just good value, and it's building a room. It's building a room of players that other people are going to be volatile in that position because they're going to pass too much. And like you said, then you have trade chips. Like you said, okay, Tyler Shuck, Cam Ward, let's just say this hypothetically, right? Like they both finish 16-18 this year, right? Let's say they're both in that range, but someone needs a quarterback desperately bad, and Mac Jones does get a starting job. Well, I mean, just value alone, the value skyrocketed on, what you paid for the guy in the startup draft, right? I mean, like you get Tyler Shuck, I don't know, for example, I mean, roughly about where he's going. Let's just say right around like the 7th, 8th round, right? Well, I mean, you're going to get probably value equivalent to something that's going to be right around the 5th round. So, I mean, you're going to go up, I mean, just based off of that alone. I mean, value equivalization. And I think that's my next one, Bob. And, I think that you can agree with me on this. There are teams and players out there that maybe we don't love, right? But, like, I try to weigh things like opportunity and value. So, like, Michael Wilson was the prime example of that last year. I got him in, like, so many drafts late. I got him in the 20th, 19th round. But you looked at it, right? Like, okay, the Arizona Cardinals, you know it. You're not a fan of that situation. Neither am I. But, okay, who's the number 2 on that team in the receiving category? It's Michael Wilson, right? I mean, we know Trey McBride's the number 1 target, but they have Marvin. Who else at wide receiver? So, okay, you're looking at the second wide receiver on this team in the 20th round. I mean, we're talking opportunity and value, right? Like, okay, I might not love the situation. I might not love the team, but there is opportunity there. And for the 20th round, that's damn good value for that kind of opportunity. I know you mentioned that about Chris Rodriguez. I mean, that's the thing people got to look at, right? Like, I mean, if you don't love a player, you can't be looking through rose-colored glasses, or you can't look through a blindfold and act like you don't want to see it. Sometimes it's like, okay, the value's there and the opportunity is there. It just makes sense. And I can put my personal beliefs aside and I'll go for that player just because the value's right. Because Dynasty is a value game. I mean, that's just what it is, right? I mean, you got to look at it that way. And sometimes people can surprise you, right? I just hate when player values get too high. But whenever it's in a startup situation particularly, it's talent and, it's value and it's opportunity and it's all those things. And you look at it and say, okay, what makes the most sense? I think that's a good way to approach your drafts, Bob. Even if you don't like a team or a player, opportunity and value sometimes can just work out that way.
Yeah, like Michael Wilson was, I don't want to say genius move, but a very smart move because, like, it just worked out. It could have been turds, right?
Right.
But as late as you were getting him, it made sense, right? Because we hadn't seen enough from Marvin Harrison Jr. Yes, Trey McBride's the number 1 target, but you're talking about a team that was going to be down on a lot of games. I mean, we didn't know Jacoby Brissett was going to be the one to unlocking, but there's still a ton of people that have, immense hope for Kyler Murray. And it's like, if Kyler Murray doesn't get hurt and they're behind in games, then he's going to be chucking the ball all over the yard. And of course, that's what happened with Jacoby Brissett. And it is what it is. But I think this rolls into my third topic. I like drafting guys I like. You know what I mean? Not just like, I mean, yes, I'm not going to overreach for him, which falls into things like what you're talking about. Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm getting players at value and things like that, but I don't want to draft a bunch of guys that I don't care for. It's awesome. And I don't like to draft to trade, if that makes sense. Like, I talked about the hoarding of quarterbacks. Like, I'll do that, but it's not to necessarily seek out a deal. But if a deal falls in my lap, okay, great. But all the players I mentioned, I like, Mac Jones, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, Cam Ward, Tyler Shuck, all those quarterbacks I like. So on top of like my wide receiver room, I think the third wide receiver I took was Brian Thomas Jr. I like Brian Thomas Jr. Like, I don't want to root for Xavier Worthy. He's not like, my cup of tea. Or Tyreek Hill, I'm not even interested in taking Tyreek Hill on my last pick. Can it work out in spades for somebody? Sure. But like, I'll put this on top of it, the caveat, I'm not a fan of drafting guys who have a lot of off-field problems. any off-field problems. We're playing Dynasty. I want to be able to quasi count on it. If something pops up in some guys that comes out of the blue, then okay. Like, I didn't see that coming. But like, when you can absolutely, when you know that a guy pushed his girlfriend down a staircase in college, they're out racing on the street and stuff, and getting in vehicle accidents constantly, or like all of the players from Georgia basically like to speed and drink and drive. It's like, why am I doing that? So yeah, I think I just rolled like one thing into a bunch of things, but like, I just like drafting players that I like. And of course I want players that I like and think will be successful, but.
Right. And I think another one of my things that'll roll right into what you're talking about, because you're right, Bob, but you go with the players that you want to go with. I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, sometimes we can all get caught up in this ADP of like, oh, I have to take this guy. No, you don't. I mean, you look for a trade or something, right? Like, that's a smart thing. See if someone wants to trade with you in your draft, or anything to where, hey, if I have to, I'm just going to take the player that I want to take. I don't care what the result is. That's what I believe. And I mean, I've done that many a times, and yeah, it could burn you, but it could work out too. One thing I want to talk about is overdrafting rookies. Right? Like, I mean, we know this is a dynasty setting. I think people get caught up in the headspace of like trying to go too young, too much. Like, you're not going to threaten me with a good time. If there is a rookie there that I truly, truly believe in, that I really like, okay, I could definitely make the case for it. But like, it's amazing how a lot of these apps and a lot of these different places where you can play fantasy football have these rookies ADP up there. I mean, you look even like this year, right? Like, Jordan Tyson and Carnell Tate and people like that getting drafted over A.J. Brown and Zay Flowers and people of that ilk, right? Like, I mean, look, it definitely could work out, but you're not telling me all three of them guys are going to outperform them two, right? I mean, it's just not going to happen. Like, there's going to be a bust or two in there. Maybe they all won't outperform them. And I just think that we get all caught up in the space of like, oh, it's Dynasty, so we can't pick a guy that's 28 or 29 years old. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to take some of these guys that should be getting Social Security or something, but I'm not going to be getting a guy that, we're going to worry about getting a guy that's 28, 29 years old. Like, I can still build around that, and even if it goes wrong, Bob, like for an A.J. Brown, like, this is just a prime example. This is a player that we think is going to have a bounce back that's probably going to be a really solid value for where you're drafting him and what you're paying for him on contending rosters. Like, if he does go off right now, I mean, it's going to be, one of these things where his value is going to shoot right back up. So, like, you could trade that player and easily get a first, Bob. I know you agree with me. If it goes the way we think in New England, you could trade A.J. Brown for a 27 first to a contending team, no problem, right? So then you can redraft another rookie. So I just don't like getting caught up in the headspace of like, oh, it's a dynasty league. I only can draft players that are 24, 25 years old. I think that is something that I think as far as dynasty approach is foolishness. I just think it's still a fantasy football draft at the end of the day. Yes, you have to have a little bit of, notice of that with your roster. Like, you don't want to go for Tales of the Crypt and go with a bunch of old guys either, but you don't have to go with all these guys that are 24, 25 years old. And I know you agree with me because we talk about value all the time, and sometimes just give me the value.
Well, you don't want to draft a team full of Bobs, right? The old dudes that can't hardly move anymore. Like, don't draft those guys. We're speed bumps on the field. It's not even a fan. It's not even worth it. But I like the young guys, but I also am like, I'm not just going to reach. And of course, it still depends on the class, right? Like, this is a class that I wasn't like head over heels in love with anyway. So of course I wasn't drafting a whole lot of rookies. There is one thing that I do like to try and do. I like to try and get an extra first in the next class. But I also I will do that. I'll grab somebody else's first somehow or another. Like this year I traded a 6th-round pick or whatever for a first and a 15th or whatever it was. And the guy drafted Travion Henderson. Well, I like Travion Henderson, but it wasn't like, I'm like, oh, first off, I'm not taking running backs for a long time. But that's my, I generally punt the first year anyway. So there's part of my strategy in a nutshell, right? I almost always punt the first year. But like if I feel like I can be competitive, or if there's something along the lines that I want to go up and get or make a grab for, like I told you, I ended up, I think it was basically in the 7th round or whatever. So the very next round, I traded my first to get back in, and I grabbed the second quarterback, and I got an extra 2 picks or whatever later on. So, that's just how I did it. And of course, in a super flex, most quarterbacks that you have any kind of faith in, which Tyler Shuck for a first in 2027, which I think I'll be at least middle of the pack, is fine. But I still have a first because I traded for somebody else's. So I'm going to give you this. I want to do another league with a group of people, and I don't care if I know who they are, but I want to try and trade out of the first 3 rounds. And I want to try and acquire as much draft capital as I can and try and draft out of the first 3 rounds. Just jump out of the first 3 rounds. Because, there was so many players, TJ, that were going, 8th round, 9th round, 10th round, that I'm like, dang, God, I wish I would have got that guy. I wish I could have got that guy. And I was upset because, sure, everybody likes the shiny toys, the high-end players, but man, it's just so much more. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm on crack sometimes, but I like just having a whole bunch of players, you know what I mean? More than just, the studs. Because, I like a lot of times people will consolidate the crap out of their teams and try and cram themselves all the way into the very top echelons of players. And I'm just not that way. And sure, it's nice to have Josh Allen. There's actually a team that I have Josh Allen on, and I've been trying all get out to move down to Drake May. Now, the guy just is like, I got Drake May. I don't really want to trade him. And I'm like, yeah, but your dad's a big Buffalo fan. You must be a Buffalo fan too, right? And he's kind of like, yeah, but, and it just doesn't work out sometimes. But I'm going to try. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, we know. We know for Drake May you're going to try. No doubt about it.
But so back to my original point, I do like to try and get at least a little bit of the draft capital. And of course, next year is really hard to do that because, that's why I would love to just get in a $20 league with a bunch of people and just trade out of the first 3 rounds and see what kind of capital I could get. But here's the thing too, Dynasty startup trades are balls stupid sometimes. Some guy will be offering you oh, well, I can't work this out. And I'm like, if you look at the players in that range, they're barely worth a second. Why should I pay you a first for what you're asking? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah. And it is what it is. It's just people always have different values and people will do crazy things. And I'm not one of those people. I'll do nuts things all the time, especially that's why I like playing in cheap leagues so I can do fun stuff. No, for sure. And, look, it can work out, that strategy, like you said, because I've done that before in a couple free leagues. It was in the 2024 class, right? I knew that class was going to be very good with, all the receivers and obviously Caleb Williams and those type of players. And it worked out for me, right? And to your credit, like you said about getting guys in the 7th, 8th round and things like that, I did that. And actually, believe it or not, I just missed the playoffs in that league. I still drafted good enough. I was on the bubble. And then I had all those picks, and I got players like Brian Thomas and, Brock Bowers. And I just built this conglomerate, massively great team. So it can happen if the class is good enough. And, it is interesting and fun to try different things like that. But, here's another thing for you, Bob. And, I've talked to Teixeira about this a lot. And, it's funny sometimes when you can be ahead on stuff. And, I said this all last year. There is no shame, and even if it ain't tight end premium, there is no shame in flexing tight ends, right? It drove me crazy when I seen some of these people that would have these questions on start sits. It was they were trying to start these long shot wide receivers over guys like Jake Ferguson and people like that just because they were a backup tight end on their bench. Guys, there was so many builds I had last year with Trey McBride, with George Kittle, and I would have Jake Ferguson in the flex. And, Bob, we talked about this a lot. This league is going to 12 personnel more and more and more. The tight ends becoming more prevalent in these offenses. And, look, if you are on the right trajectory, like how Jake Ferguson was on
Dallas, right? Like, that team scores a lot of points, right? Like, we know they can't play defense, but they sure score a lot of points, and the guy's pretty good in the red zone, right? So, like, I don't know. I mean, you just look at it, right? Like, I'm not saying you start a guy of that kind of quality over, like, you know, a Zay Flowers or somebody. Like, if you have somebody like that in your flex, you definitely play a Zay. But you know how it is with a lot of flex spots, Bob. I mean, sometimes, especially late in the season, a lot of people are grasping at straws, and I just see so much value. Like guys down there, like, you know how I mentioned John Smith in the past, right? Like before he blew up. We're talking about Chig and Gunnar Helm and people like that this year. You can get these guys super late, especially if it's non-tight end premium. You can get these guys super late, and, you know, just a spot start here and there in the flex can save you, you know, if they go off and have some decent games. So I just think that, like what we've talked about, Bob, with 12 personnel, I just think that the tight end position outside of even tight end premium is such a value that people don't see sometimes because, let's be honest, every team really only has one starting tight end, but now we're starting to see more of them getting involved with this 12 personnel. So I just think that there's good value there at that position, and I think at times, hey, it's almost like dirty. People don't want to do it, but it's okay to start a tight end in the flex if you don't have a lot of depth.
So just to, and I'm going to end up waxing poetic about this roster, but so like what I did was, and this goes along with like my other topic, like the tight end premium in this league was pretty dumb, right? Like I told you, it was a little high. So I get Tucker Kraft later on. I think the next tight end I draft, which I think it was right after Ty said something about never drafting Dalton Kincaid. He's absolutely terrible, blah, blah, blah. Well, I drafted Dalton Kincaid. And I'm not even ashamed of it, TJ, because at a certain point, I'm like, if he does what he's capable of doing, now he's got to stay healthy, it's worth where I picked him at. But then I ended up getting Gunnar Helm. And I ended up drafting Oscar Delp. I ended up drafting Cade Otton. I ended up drafting Cole Kmet. If he moves on to another team, Cole Kmet is a pretty good tight end. So there's that. Not to mention the fact that I drafted Marlon Klein, the rookie, because we had taxi spots. So I drafted the rookie out of Houston, and I drafted Dallin Bentley, who I think's the guy that wins the job in Denver eventually, because I don't think that Joe Lee or whatever is the end-all be-all guy. And, you know, the only thing that, you know, this is my honorable mention for things that I must do in a draft, and that's never draft Kyle Pitts. So, like, as long as I don't draft Kyle Pitts, I love the tight end thing. You're absolutely right. I think that this roster, and I mean, I'm not saying that I avoided. The only position I really avoid in a draft is generally running back. And I just, that's part of my punt strategy. Generally, I don't go grab anybody that is a high-end name. Like my number one running back is Zach Charbonnet, if that tells you how high I drafted a running back. So, I was trying to think, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. So I went in with old Bill. And then I just started hitting the piss out of it later on. And it's like, I don't have anybody that's exciting. But, you know, I like I told you, my wide receivers, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas, your boy Pittman, Destron Stribling, and your other boy Jacoby Myers. So, like, I feel like I have a wide receiver room that I can rotate through those three positions, no problem. And if I have to, I can rotate those guys through the flex. And it's like, I don't know. Like I said, and it's a stingy horde thing. Like I listened to Start Your Studs the other day, and the guys were talking about Oscar Delp, and they're like, "Oh yeah." What's funny is they talked like they were the first ones on Oscar Delp, and we've been talking about Oscar Delp for 3 months now, TJ. Yeah. Like apparently they don't listen to our show. That's unnerving, but it is what it is there. So, but yeah, like I will draft that way. Like, again, this falls back to the other part of knowing your league. When you're talking about a 1.75 premium on top of the one that everybody's getting, 2 3/4 points per catch. Like, if they're a warm body not named Kyle Pitts, I'll draft them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And like, the value is just insane, right? Like, I'm just going to give you a few names. Now, this is a Scott Fishbowl, right? This isn't a dynasty draft. This is a redraft. But, okay, like you have Hunter Henry. Okay, he was picked in the 15th round. He was tight end 9 last year. Okay, you have sitting here Jawan Johnson, who I agree with you. I don't think he's long for that. I'm an Oscar Delp fan too. But just on a value sense, 17th round. He was tight end 8 last year, right? Dalton Schultz was picked in the 18th round as well, tight end 10. So I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying all them guys are going to do it again, because, I mean, it's not going to always happen that way. But the simple fact that you got the 8th, 9th, 10th best tight end performer last year in them type of areas in your draft, it just shows you how them guys kind of get disrespected and slid down a little bit, right? I mean, you want to talk about some players that were picked around them, like Isaac Tesla. I mean, come on. I mean, like, it's not going to happen. Like, it's nothing like against him, but like, would you rather just go with the guy that's going to get the points, or a long shot out of nowhere it's probably never going to play, right? Zachariah Branch, Jalen Newell. Like, no, just give me those tight ends. Give me the value. And it's also a good trade piece. And like I said, Bob, the 12 personnel, we talk about that. This league, it's a copycat league. They're all going with more of these big guys out on the field. And you know, a lot of them are becoming more prevalent in the passing game through college, right? The RPO, the spread it out. Like, these guys ain't just really blockers anymore. Like, you're seeing some guys that can really develop into good receiving tight ends that really didn't even have that makeup coming out of high school either. So I just think that it's just, if I'm going to be picking in them rounds, give me someone that's done something, and give me someone that's proven to me that they can finish in the top tier end of their position group. You know, that's kind of just where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I want to pony with this is, because we're talking about tight ends, is what I really like to do is try and get, like, obviously Jordan Love and Tucker Kraft are a high-end pair. But when I draft Cam Ward and I know I can get Gunnar Helm all the way down in the 11th round, right, which is where I grabbed him, I'm like, what? Hell yeah. Like, that's a pair that I want to get. Well, I drafted Tyler Shuck. What do I do in the, where was it at here? In the 17th round, I draft Oscar Delp. You know what I'm saying? So, like, and I mean, I hit tight end, you know, here and there. Kate Otten, I drafted in the 15th round or whatever. But, you know, if you can get those guys, and of course, like, heaven forbid Loveland goes down, but I think Cole Kmet absorbs a lot of that play. And, you know, it's like handcuffed tight end. Who does that stuff? But, like, when you're a guy that got the contract that Cole Kmet got, it's pretty significant. Like, so I don't think that he's just going to go away. He might just go away from the Bears, but he's not going to just go away. I think he's got too much talent. But that's a player take, not necessarily a draft take. But, like, again, it's like what you said. It's going to be a position that's getting used more often, whether we like it or not. But then on top of that, it's just, why not? Especially with the premium like this league has. Like, any league that's got a significant premium, hit the premium positions. It's just is what it is.
Right. And even like I said, I mean, depending on where you're at in your drafts, right? I mean, just go for the value. The value's there. And I like what you said too, Bob. Everyone gets caught up in the quarterback receiver stack. That's low-key sneaky nowadays, this quarterback tight end stack too. So here's another one here for you, Bob, that kind of drives me crazy. Now, I'm all for getting the handcuff for my running back if I'm going that direction, but I am not overdrafting that by any means, right? I've been in so many drafts where people stress about getting that handcuff, but, like, they just overdraft these guys, and it drives me crazy. I know you've probably seen it as well. And look, it's a good thing to get your handcuff, but I am not going to put my entire draft in jeopardy or waste talented players that are on the board just to get that handcuff. Because, I mean, I've seen it in a couple drafts that I was in recently, right? Like the Zach Charbonnet and the Jadarian Price thing, right? Like, I seen a guy take those two within a round or two of each other, and it's like, I get it, you want the backfield, but there were still good players on the board, Bob. And it's like, you know, I look at it like, you look at the Seattle situation especially. We talked about this a lot. Like, I just don't want any part of that backfield. Like, I've seen it before. I've seen it with Kenneth Walker. I've seen it with Zach Charbonnet already. I don't think Jadarian Price is a superhero by any means. I mean, I think he's going to be a solid player, but I don't think he's a superhero. And it's like, I'm not going to be drafting 2 running back 2s right in the middle of my draft when there's people on the board that could be difference makers. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I know that it drives me nuts. I'm sure it drives you nuts. I just think that you can't get caught in the trap of wanting this entire backfield too much and overspending for it via draft capital or through picks in your startup. I see it a lot, and I just think that it's kind of unnecessary. Play the wire, too. I mean, like, you could get guys all the time. We know running back's a body bag position. Like I said, I'm not discouraging anyone from getting those handcuffs. I'm just not going to pay crazy, stupid prices to try to make it happen.
I just don't know. I don't know of any running back situation that I'm like, oh, man, that is the team I have to have all the running backs from. I was just trying to think of it off the top of my head. CMC is a unicorn, but if he goes down, there's nobody there that's going to do what CMC does, regardless. Jonathan Taylor, like I was listening to a pod the other day, and they're talking about who's behind Jonathan Taylor. It's like a ghost town. Does it mean that I won't? Is it mean that I won't take Seth McGowan because I think the guy's got some talent and I can get him ridiculously late? Yeah, I'll do that. And I don't even know if he's the clear handcuff. Giddens is still there that they drafted last year. So like, who even knows? And then on top of that, like, I'm just trying to think of the elite guys. Kyron Williams, like, are we super sure that it'll ever be a full workload for one guy or the other? Like, and Blake Corum comes along. This is why when we talk about buying running backs, TJ, I'm always shopping at the bottom bargain basement prices. I don't want to pay for anybody. I drafted Chardonnay. I told you he's my RB1. I got him in the 9th round, and it was my second 9th round pick. So it's like, it's not like I was, I don't feel like I was wasting a whole lot of time. I'm like, well, you know what? If he comes back healthy, I don't believe in Jadarian Price anyway. Let's just see what happens. It's a body bag position. I legitimately just don't even. There's no situation off the top of my head where I'm like, man, the handcuff is so good that I'm, like Bijan and Brian Robinson Jr. Like, are you serious? Like, if Bijan goes down, Brian Robinson is adequate, but he's not. I can't even fathom him being a league winner. You know what I'm saying? That's not in the cards. Jahmyr Gibbs now, like they got Isaiah Pacheco. Like, it used to be that Montgomery was there, sure, but like that was not even like, most of the time you're like, it's not necessarily a league winner. So like most of the time I think probably my last statement is kind of like what you hinted at. Like, I just don't draft running backs with any sense of urgency. Like, I would rather just let something come to me that I feel comfortable with, and it's just because I got to put a body in those two positions. And if we only start 2 running backs and 5 flexes or 27, I don't care. I'm probably only going to start 2 running backs. I just, unless now I'm not going to tell you that 5 years into a league when my antenna goes up and I'm like, man, I'm really close. I could use a couple running backs. And then people start flooding you with trade offers because you're like, hey, look, I got, this draft capital. I got these players. I'm willing to trade for a couple running backs. I've got lineups where now I'm starting 5 running backs. That's never been the plan. But if it happens that way, but Derrick Henry's going to age out, so on and so forth. So, you get my point. When I say I punt, generally, I mean, I'm just not bothering with running back position. I'm going to stack the rest of my team up. And then in the rookie drafts, I'm going to grab every running back I can with every pick that I have and then just see what happens.
Yeah. And let me just say this too. Like, I don't like getting caught in the trap, Bob, of like, and I know you don't pick a ton of running backs, but like, this is the trap of like, okay, like overextending yourself at a team of players that are probably going to do something similar to guys I could have got later. Like, I look at like Bucky Irving, right? Like, he went in the latest Dynasty startup I did at 6-12. Well, okay, Kenneth Gainwell's there. It's a volatile situation. I wouldn't put my trust in that. I mean, that's just one example. RJ Harvey went at the 7-11. I mean, we know Sean McVay likes to use multiple backs. J.K. Dobbins is there. They do draft Jonah Coleman. I mean, there's a lot of question marks still in that backfield, right? Like, it's still a little bit crowded. Well, how about this? You could get DeAndre Swift and David Montgomery in the 9th round, and they're probably going to produce exactly similar results to what them players are. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't give me a guy that's mainly the horse, like a Chase Brown, a James Cook, a Derrick Henry. Like, I'm just using examples, like you said, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, if I get into these situations of, like, a Bucky Irving, Kenneth Gainwell, that could extend itself into similar production, what you're going to see out of DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. And I could get them guys later than what I drafted Bucky Irving. You follow what I'm saying, Bob? Like, I just think, too, like, you got to be careful thinking these guys, it's a Trojan horse is basically what I'm saying. Like, you're going to be in the same type of similar backfield in Tampa Bay, probably what you're going to see in Chicago, if I had to guess. Real close. And, I mean, I'm not saying if Bucky Irving's healthy, he couldn't outproduce them, because I think he can. But, boy, I don't think it's going to be by a wide margin. And you just wasted 3 rounds of capital on a setup that's probably not going to be too different in my eyes.
Yeah, I think just looking at this draft, I think my 9th round target was David Montgomery, and he got drafted with the first pick in that round. And then I took Kincaid with the 4th pick, and then turned around and took Charbonnet with the 8th, because I had 2 draft picks in that due to trading. But like, and I remember being on the podcast being like, dang it, like I was hoping to get Montgomery, and it is what it is. But that's the kind of guy I like to grab, like a guy that free agent his way to a team that really needs the situation, but there's a lot of people that still believe in Woody Marks. I don't know. And
that's fair, Bob. That's fair. Like the Woody Marks, but that's what I'm saying, right? Like you got Bucky Irving, Kenneth Gainwell, and you got Woody Marks and David Montgomery. Let's say that they touch the ball all equivalently between the 4 of them. I think the situation's going to work out about the same. Like I said, I'm not sitting here saying Bucky Irving might not have a longer shelf life than David Montgomery, but he's not a big guy, right? I'm not someone that super believes in that. But you look at like just the setup for 2026, and if you are drafting running backs and you say this more than anybody, you better be drafting to win, right? Like if you're drafting running backs, you better go in with the intent of trying to win. So like if you go with a Bucky Irving in the 6th round, and with Kenneth Gainwell there, his injury history, I just don't see what he could give you. If they're all healthy for the whole season, I think it's going to be very close in Houston with David Montgomery than it is with Tampa Bay with Bucky Irving. I think it could work out equally similar, and you wasted 3 rounds of capital to get a guy that I think's just going way higher than he should in a similar situation.
Yeah, this is the ad nauseum of Bob's 0 RB strategy. Like, I don't even, yep, okay. Like, I get what you're telling me, TJ, because, like, I don't sniff a running back generally till the 9th round anyway.
Right.
Right. And I had hoped that David Montgomery would be my RB1, and he got taken before me, and Charbonnet lands in my lap. But whatever. I'm like, I'm not bitter about it. Like, I don't play Dynasty for this year.
Yeah.
I mean, even next year, I don't play it for this year. I'm playing it for the long haul. I want to try and make a decent lineup that I can look at year in and year out and go, okay, these 7 to 8 players are my cornerstone players. If any of those guys is a running back, I'm like, what the hell did I do? How did I manage to get that? I love this episode idea for sure, TJ. You came up with it. It's great. I mean, I could talk startups all day. I just, my thing is I'm almost always, I'm going to punt, hey, if you invite me to a league and it's at a digestible dollar figure that I'm interested in joining, and if I know more than one of you, generally I'll jump in. But like, you can almost always expect that I'm not going to compete the first year, maybe not even the second. I mean, but after that, like it's balls to the wall after that. And that's how I run all my teams. And some people think my wife thinks I'm nuts because she thinks I'm just hosing money away, but like, it all depends on the cost.
It's all about having a strategy. I've said it all from the beginning. The best thing you can do from a dynasty standpoint when you're in a first time startup, go in with a strategy. If you want to go in with the intent to contend all the way. If you want to go into contend of going young and waiting and being patient, go that way. Because the worst thing you can do is put 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You just go one direction, you pick a way, and you go that way. It's like a fork in the road, right? You're going this way, you're going that way. You pick that way, and you stick with it. And I think that's the way to go. But no, I love this episode too, Bob. It was a lot of fun. And, I just like talking about values, players, strategies, and it's very good stuff for people that are participating in their first Dynasty draft because, let's be honest, I mean, we are going to the Expo. That's why I also wanted to do this episode. There are going to be a lot of first-time players there, and it's going to be something that can be really valuable for people that's been through these drafts. We've been through them a million times, and you just see things. You pick up on things, and hopefully it helps people. That's what it's all about. But, guys, if you are enjoying the content on Spotify, Apple Pod, Stitcher, Amazon, any of the big podcasting platforms, and you haven't yet, please follow and 5-star the show. Greatly helps. We so appreciate it. Like and subscribe Dynasty DNA on YouTube, guys. A lot of great stuff going on over there. Love to have you on the YouTube channel. We're going to have a lot of great live content coming up for the season. Start sits. We're going to be doing some betting stuff. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff over there. And we're going Sunday morning doing the live Dynasty DNA Sunday morning show before kickoff. If you guys want to follow us on X at Dynasty DNA _. Make sure to join the Dynasty DNA TikTok. It's starting to build. The guys are doing a great job with that over there. We'd love to have you. But listen, I know I speak for Big Culture Bob, everyone at the Dynasty DNA Network when we say, hope you guys have a great week ahead of you. We hope to see you at the Expo if you're there. And we'll see you all on the next episode of The Culture Shock.